You're setting up your business in California and suddenly everyone is throwing terms at you like, get an LLC, you need to have insurance, just do both of them, all these things. And then you start Googling and every answer contradicts the last one. Some say you will lose everything without both. Others say one makes the other pointless. And here's what most of those posts don't tell you. If you choose, unfortunately, the wrong one, you could be exposed to personal liability or wasting thousands protecting the wrong thing. I'm Ali Talai, a California attorney focused on asset protection, and I help clients figure this out every single week. This video breaks down exactly when you need insurance, when you need an LLC, and when, yes, you really do need both. So you avoid unnecessary costs, protect what matters, and stop second-guessing every legal blog you read at 2 a.m. So let's say you own a rental property in Los Angeles. One day you get a call, a tenant slipped on a loose tile in the lobby and broke their ankle. Suddenly you're facing a serious lawsuit. The tenant wants you to pay their medical bills, lost wages, and pain and suffering. You've got questions, and I hear them every day. Will my insurance cover this thing? Or would an LLC have protected me? Do I need both, or is that just overkill? Here in California, these are not just hypothetical worries. Lawsuits are a fact of life. We are one of the most litigious states in the country. People sue over everything from trip and falls to mold to alleged discrimination. If you own real estate, especially rental properties, you're a target for sure. So let's break down how insurance and LLCs actually work. I will try to give you some simple stories and California-specific rules. And in California, plaintiffs almost never stop at just suing the property or the entity that the property is. They look for ways to name the owner personally as well. And I tell you why in just a bit. All right, so picture this. You took out a landlord insurance policy with a reputable company. The tenant that you have slips, sues, and you call your insurance company. What happens next, if you're lucky, is that the insurance company will defend you, pay for a lawyer that is needed to defend you, and will pay out damages if you lose up to the policy limit. For most normal accidents, this is your first line of defense. Your insurance is your first line of defense. But, and this is a big one, insurance isn't magic. In California, policies are full of exclusions and fine prints. Maybe your insured denies the claim because the tile was damaged for months and you ignored it, arguing it was a willful neglect. Or maybe your policy doesn't cover punitive damages, which California jurors can and do award. Or what if the claim is valid, but the injury is catastrophic and your policy maxes out at $500,000, but the judgment is at $1.5 million. Here's another curveball. Insurance companies sometimes go bankrupt. It's sometimes, but they do every once in a while go bankrupt. Sometimes they refuse to defend you or just drag their feet. I have seen clients have years of peace, then get stuck in a nightmare because their carrier insisted an act was intentional and thus not covered. Now, let's talk about LLCs because this is where a lot of misinformation floats around online. People often say, put the property in an LLC and now you're protected. That is only partially true, especially in California. If you own a rental property through an LLC and you're personally involved, for example, you manage the property, handle repairs, deal with the tenant, or make decisions about maintenance, you will almost certainly be named in the lawsuit personally if something goes wrong. The tenant will sue the LLC and you as the landlord. That means the LLC does not magically erase personal liability. If the claim is based on your own conduct, negligent maintenance, failure to fix known hazard, or improper management, the lawsuit doesn't stop at the entity. They're going to come after you as well. So what does the LLC do? It helps contain the damage. It limits what assets are exposed through that business. When structured and maintained properly, the LLC can prevent a lawsuit tied to one property from automatically spilling over into your other properties, your personal residence, your investment accounts. This is where insurance and LLCs are often misunderstood. Insurance is designed to pay claims and fund your legal defense, and the LLC is designed to separate assets and limit how far a lawsuit can spread. But here's the reality in California. If you're personally involved, plaintiffs will try to reach you, not just the entity. That is why what really matters is how you have your other assets structured. What sort of asset protection planning do you have for the other stuff you have? Your home, other rental property, your investment accounts. That's what really matters. If one rental property is sued, the key question becomes, can the plaintiff now reach your other properties? Your personal home, your bank accounts, or your investments? That is where proper entity structuring, separation between properties, and proper trust planning come into play. The LLC isn't about avoiding being sued. It is about controlling the blast radius. Let me give you a real example out of Orange County. A landlord owned a duplex through an LLC. Tenants claimed they got sick from a hidden mold and sued for $2 million. As expected, the lawsuit named both the LLC and the landlord personally because he had been involved in the management of the property. The landlord had insurance, and the carrier agreed to defend the case and cover up to $1 million. But when the case went to trial, the jury awarded $1.8 million. Insurance covered part of it, but not all. Here is where the structure mattered the most. Even though the landlord was personally named in the lawsuit, the property itself was owned by the LLC. Other assets that the client had were owned separately through other LLCs and holding LLCs and irrevocable asset protection trust. So the plaintiff could not automatically reach his personal residence, his other rental properties, his investment accounts, his retirement accounts. Losing the property was not easy, the property where the lawsuit was from, but it did not wipe out everything he had built. I've also seen the opposite scenario where insurance denied coverage because of a technical exclusion. In those cases, a properly structured LLC with other structures for other assets that the client owns can still prevent the claim from spreading to the owner's other assets. That is the 1-2 punch, and that was my punch right there. Insurance pays first when it can, and legal structure limits the damage when it cannot. A question that I get asked all the time, beside the ones that my kids ask, which is when you're coming home, is that having both insurance and LLC, is that an overkill? In California, the answer usually is no. You need both, and you have to understand why. Insurance is your first line of defense. It pays for legal defense, court costs, and many type of damages. Even a weak or exaggerated claim can cost a lot of money. Having insurance means you're not personally funding the battle. But insurance has its own limitations. Policies can be capped, claims can fall into exclusions, and verdicts in California can easily exceed coverage. When that happens, the question becomes, what assets are exposed next? That's where an LLC matters. An LLC doesn't prevent you from being named personally if you were involved in the business. And in California, you often will be. But a properly structured LLC can limit how far a lawsuit spreads. It can keep a problem tied to one property or business from automatically reaching your other properties, your personal home, or your investment accounts. The best way to think about this is that insurance helps pay the claim, and the LLC helps contain the damage. You hope you never need either one, but when something goes wrong, having both can be the difference between a painful loss and a total financial wipeout. A lot of people don't realize that California has some of the strongest tenant protections law and broadest liability rules in the country. If someone is injured on your property, you can be held strictly liable for certain conditions, even if you weren't aware of it, even if you were not negligent. Local ordinance can impose extra penalties for things like lead paint, mold, or unsafe balconies. Juries here are known for awarding significant damages, and judges often let cases go to trial that might be tossed elsewhere. If you own rental properties in California, the goal isn't perfection. It's separation and layering. Start with strong landlord insurance and review it every year. Don't just look at its limits. Ask what is excluded and where your coverage stops. Insurance is your first line of defense, and you want it working when you need it most. Next, use LLCs intentionally, whether it's one property per LLC or you grouping properties strategically into one LLC. The purpose is to isolate risk. One problem shouldn't automatically threaten everything else you own. That only works if the LLC is treated like a real business. Separate bank accounts, clean records, no mixing of personal assets and company assets. If you're signing a lease under the LLC's name, make sure you sign under the name of the LLC and not your name. And finally, don't treat any of this as set it and forget it. Laws change, portfolios grow, families evolve, and risk increases over time. Reviewing your insurance and legal structure regularly with the right professionals can make the difference between manageable lawsuits and financial disasters. A little planning up front goes a long way, especially in California where legal terrain is unforgiving. So do you need both insurance and an LLC in California? In most cases, yes, but for different reasons. Insurance pays claims and funds your legal defense, and LLC helps contain the damage so one lawsuit doesn't spill into everything else you own. Neither one replaces the other. If you want to take this a step further, the next video dives into exactly how umbrella insurance works in California and when it can make a real difference. It is called How to Insure Against Lawsuits, the Role of Umbrella Insurance in California. I look forward to seeing you over there.